Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. This is another Distro Wars. We're going to be looking at two very popular Linux builds, those being Ubuntu Mate and Linux Mint Mate. So yes, I've done Ubuntu versus Linux Mint, but now we're pinning up the Mate desktop environment. Also at the outset, the Mate environment itself is not my favorite overall, but it is very good. There's just something in it that just doesn't jive with me, and I have never quite figured out what it is. Overall, though, it is a very good desktop, and what we want to do here is we want to have a look at what both of these two are, what they have to offer, and play around with them in a virtual machine. So looking at their websites, ubuntu-mate.org, this is an official community flavor of the Ubuntu. And so today we're going to be testing the 2010 beta version of this, which is certainly stable enough to give as a run-up for Linux Mint 20, which still has not received some of its early updates and is not particularly all that good. So that's why I'm still telling people stay on Linux Mint 19.3 until 20.1 comes out. That's my personal recommendation. That's what I'm doing with my machines. So with Ubuntu Mate, however, we have some basic screenshots here. We get a nice welcome screen. We will see that. We have nice calendars. Oh, look at this. There's some images, web browser, I guess that is. There's Steam playing on it. There's a video playing on it. So there you go. You have a variety of things. They do actually have Raspberry Pi builds for 2B on up to the current 4. So that's one of the great things about Ubuntu Mate is this team is just all over it. And they do a really excellent job as well. Linux Mint, of course, my old favorite. You can head on over to the Linux Mint download here, and they have 3 different varieties. These are going to be pretty much exactly the same, just with a different desktop environment. Of course, anything that is desktop environment specific changes to whichever desktop we have. And so you can head on over here. You go back to all versions. You can get some older versions there. Like I said, I still recommend if you're new to Linux Mint, I would still recommend using 19.3 until 20.1 is released, which should be coming up pretty soon. There are a few extra bugs in Linux Mint 20, and it's never my recommendation to upgrade and use the latest package right when it comes out. That being said, of course, we're going to be pinning this one up, which has been out for a while, and that's next to a beta. But anyway, it is going to work out fairly well because the Ubuntu 10 releases are usually extraordinarily rock solid. So what we're going to do here is we will go ahead and start looking at Ubuntu, and then we will have a look at Linux Mint next. So he just booted into the machine. It goes right on into our loading screen with the nice customized Ubuntu Mate logo. Following the triad of Ubuntu tying in with the Mate logo. And we'll come back when this is booted up. All right, now let me turn on desktop audio here. There was a nice little toggly noise when you start booting it in. So here we are landing on the login screen here. We have accessibility options up here in the corner. We can shut down, suspend the machine, do your basics here. And then over here, we'll just go ahead and enter our super secret password that's definitely not 123. And then we are going to land on the desktop. Now, one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of on this is that it actually installs updates automatically out of the box. And I did not realize this, and so I like to install the distros and then go ahead and update them, which I usually go into the terminal and do, and I go into the terminal and everything's locked. I'm like, really? So you check the update settings, and lo and behold, that if you check the software and updates settings, the default for this build is actually to have under updates, download and install updates automatically. So yes, this is Ubuntu Windows 10 Edition. Now, it's not completely like that because you can actually display them immediately, download them automatically, or download and install automatically. So they have the download and install automatically set by default. The good news is if you do not know how to update your system, you're not going to get nags. It's just going to automatically do them. The bad news is for those of us that like to do things manually, I did not know it was doing this until I tried to do an update with the terminal and it crashed out on me. So I turned that down and went ahead and did that. Let's go ahead and see if there is a system monitor, see what type of RAM we're looking at here. So we're running on just under a gig of RAM, which is pretty good. Now our welcome screen here, let's look at this before we look at anything else in the system. This is a very nice welcome screen in that we have introduction, we have features, getting started, involvement, there's community. Now there's a software button. This is the Software Boutique. I have a couple of criticisms of this software. Now as of now, I do have it working, but when I first got it installed, it was not showing me any software. I couldn't search for any software. It took a while. Basically, it had to be installed and it had to run through that first batch of updates, which I didn't know it was doing in the background, but it was. And this was completely empty. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't search for anything. And that's kind of what I got. But now that it is updated and now it is working, they do tell you that this is not like a full installer. It has a little bit of software, and they'll actually tell you in the thing that you will want to install a full store like the GNOME or the Snap Store or whatever else. Let's have a look at what our details are here. So this is from the Ubuntu repository. So this out of the box does not appear to be pulling in from snaps. So for those that do not like the snaps, you will like that. If you do like snaps, you will probably not like that, but that is neither here nor there. Now, the next thing that we have with this is we have desktop layout, we have color selection, and browser selection. These are three amazing parts of the tools. Of course, Linux Mint as of 20 does now support a color selection, which is going to be much the same. So if you want to use the different ones, you do need to install them. We do have the default greens, but if you want to run something else, for example, the orange, you just go ahead and hit the install button, and then this is going to give you the option to check your orange options as well. So this is a great balance in that they're not bloating up the system with a lot of themes, but they are giving you an easy option to go with them. And so that's actually a nice balanced approach. I like this approach because it keeps the system a little bit lighter. There's not as much bloat. And if you never want to use purple or teal icons, they are not going to be on your system. So there we have it. We have just changed everything to orange, and give me the green back. Holy crap, that orange is hard to look at. Okay. But anyway, it's there. We do have options for light or dark. So let's go ahead and see. I'm guessing that the ambient is going to possibly change. Okay, so there's your radiant. Here is your ambient dark theme. And here is an ambient with some light and some dark. Let's go ahead and pull up a window here just to have a look at what these guys are going to look like in more context. There we are. Here's your menu. Here's your pure dark. Here's your menu, or we have this one here where we have this. I like this balance, so this is pretty nice. So this is really good in that we have a variety of color options, and you can actually easily delete them if you do not want them, which is kind of cool. Awesome. So that's actually a really good bonus for Ubuntu here. Browser selection. This is something I wish that Linux Mint would have, particularly, installing Chromium by default, although we are getting that in 2001. All right, so with this, we have the ability here to install Firefox is, of course, installed by default. We can delete it. We can install Google Chrome, Opera, Brave, Chromium, and Vivaldi. So that is an excellent option. And then the last is the desktop layout option. So you have a variety of layout options. So this one here, we have a panel on the bottom. We have a show desktop icon. We have a trash can and some desktops over here, so you can switch between different desktops. We also have Mutiny. We'll kind of cycle through all these guys here. Look at this guy here. So it's very much like your Ubuntu basic build here. We have Redmond, which is basically a Windows build. And this is effectively what we have on Linux Mint. So Linux Mint defaults to this Redmond type view. We have a Cupertino, which is going to be an Apple type build. So Nice dock built in there. Everything is out of the box. So we just have a lot of different things. Here's a few other ones. Here's a traditional. Here's a contemporary. Here's a Pantheon view. Notebook view. Let's have a look at what the contemporary looks like. Kind of like the familiar, I guess. Very similar to it. All right, so there we have that. As far as what we have installed out of the box, just your basic suite of tools. We do have the software boutique. We looked at that already. You can install extra software centers. Let's go ahead and boot that guy back up, see if it tells you about that very easily there. So it says if you can't find what you're looking for, install one of these software centers to use them completely. So here's Software Center, there's Synaptic. So we basically have two software centers. All right, so let's go ahead and do a brief look at the terminal. I want to see if there's any snaps installed by default. So we do. We have the core. We have Core 18 Snapd. Software Boutique is actually a snap, and Ubuntu Mint welcome screen is also a snap. So those are the snaps that we have out of the box. We do have LibreOffice. This is one that comes with Evolution installed by default. It's a distro after my own heart. I mean, that's really good. Here's your additional drivers, the other tools that you have, which you can access those in the control center down here as well. So you can see it's not excessively bloated. I do love the options that they have to keep all of the variety of themes and color options not installed by default, but easily allow you to install them. Out of the box, this one here is very nice. The only real downside of it is going to be those automatic updates, and I did not know it was doing automatic updates, and so the software boutique wasn't working, and so it took about an hour for me poking around to get the system to where I could use it. If you just installed it, played with it for an hour, you might not have noticed that, but there is overall the brief look at Ubuntu Mate. So we will jump on back in and look at Linux Mint next. All right, so here we are on the Linux Mint login screen. Basically the same setup. It's, basically the same. Enter my super secret password once again, and we will land in on the desktop here. And as I said, you're pretty much going to get almost the exact same thing you're going to get with any of the Linux Mints. They're all themed up to be much the same. You can just spot a few of the little subtle differences there. Primarily the menu, of course, is different, and the system tools and things. So here on the welcome screen on Linux Mint, I do find this one to be much more organized and easier to read. We have a brief welcome. We have the first steps. So here you don't have to install them. Maybe this is good. Maybe it's bad. At least the orange isn't like blinding to your face with changing the whole background bright orange. But you can go ahead and choose the color and the accents that you would like to use. So that's what it looks like. It looks very, very good, very slick like this. We'll stick with the dark and gray themes. We have the option to set up your system snapshots, basically like your restore points. We have a driver manager. We do have a driver manager on Ubuntu Mate as well. It's just not in the welcome screen. The update manager, you can launch that. Your system settings. Here is the system settings on Mate. The greatest benefits for some of you guys, Mate still's got a screensaver, baby. I do miss the screensaver on Cinnamon. Mike, you might say, sure, you don't need to save your screen anymore. I know, but I just kind of, when I'm leaving the computer down, I look back, I like doing it. But by the way, though, this one here, this screensaver here, my cat likes to sit on the thing and bat at the screen. It is the most adorably cute thing you will ever see in your life. But we do have screensaver options as well, preferred applications, welcome screens, things like that. So nothing too out of the ordinary there. The software manager on this is a complete software manager. It's not one that only has the few more select items. And so you can actually do everything. And this one is going to show you your items from your repository and from your Flatpak as well, and it will clearly indicate which one is which. Now, Linux Mint blocks snaps by default, so there's not going to be any snaps. You can install snaps. They give you documentation for how to do that if you want them. But Linux Mint uses Flatpaks instead of snaps, but everything in this store is a full, complete store out of the box. We also have a much better updating system. So this guy over here, you can switch to a local mirror is what this big blue bar is asking us about. And when there is an update to do, then you'll be able to see all the package lists, choose what you'd like to update and what you'd not like to update. You can hold packages back if you know they're going to be problematic, or if it's some application that you just want to keep the current version with for whatever project reasons, you can go ahead and do that. So the updater is good. It's going to give you just a dot notification now on the system tray to indicate that there is an update, but it's not going to install or download or install anything automatically. So for that, you need to decide, do you want the pure automatic updates like Ubuntu Mate had, or do you want the updates that are not automatic as they have over here? So as far as, let's see what else we need to cover. Let's go ahead and look at our system monitor next. Now this menu is different. This is the whisker menu. You can install the two different menus on each of the two operating systems. The big question is which one do you want to use, and it's actually easy to swap those around. Because see, we're running on about 200 less meg of RAM over here, and so this is actually going to be a little bit lighter of a system than the Ubuntu version had. Maybe some of that's, hey, it's not running automatic checks for updates in the background and things like that. As far as the applications, the downside, we do not have a simple, selector for our web browser. Although we can install most of the web browsers, Chromium in this version is locked out of it because of the snap snafu. That was probably Linux Mint's worst decision in history. But in 20.1, we should be seeing them package their own version of Chromium that is independent of the Snap Store, like we saw Pop! OS do. And so for now, though, if you do want to have an extra web browsers, you can just go into the Software Center and install them. So let's just see what we get when we type in web browsers. So Firefox, Midori, we have Epiphany browser, Lynx, Conqueror, Lynx 2. We have a Flatpak version of Firefox. There's NetSurf, GNOME Web. The one thing that you will not find in this one, I said, is Chromium. And I'm not sure we even have Google Chrome out of the box here. We don't. So if you were to click in on the Chromium, it's a dummy package. So to install something like Google Chrome, you are going to need to go online and grab it from the internet, which they have a deb package to easily install it. So it's not complicated. It's just not in the Software Center. So whether that's good or bad, you be the judge. As far as our applications, this one does have a few more applications built in because Linux Mint does agree with utilizing system tools. I personally like the system tools being there, although some people consider them bloat. Like, who in the world opens the character map? I might be the only geek who ever does, but I love it when the character map is on the system. It's one of the reasons I like Linux Mint, is because it has all these tools. You can see we have graphic tools. We have Thunderbird. Oh, I wish it came with Evolution, but it doesn't. We have the full LibreOffice suite. If you noticed, Ubuntu only had the basic Office suite, so it has the Writer, the Calc, and the Impress installed. It might have the math, but it did not have the databasing. This one actually contains the databasing as well. Also easy to install. Not a lot of other software out of the box. And so this guy here, it's not super bloated. It's going to be a full, complete operating system. The other thing we don't have is we don't have the easy way to just single button click and change the panel layouts. But you can add new panels. You can edit panels. You can reset everything. You can actually go back and do anything to the system that they had in the other build. You just don't have the single click button to do it. And so there is how Linux Mint Mate works. Overall, both very good. Both of them are going to be very stable. Linux Mint's going to have a little bit lower memory usage. Mate is going to have a few more options. Mate does the updates automatically. Linux Mint doesn't, but will give you a notification about them. So those are kind of the factors. You just need to decide for yourself which one is the best. So which one should you use? I don't know. Frankly, I'm always been partial to Linux Mint because of the options that we have, but I have to admit that Ubuntu Mate does give a few more compelling reasons for using it. Easier customization, the ability to add the web browsers, and the fact that some people might want automatic updates, which I think Linux Mint actually can do. They just don't push that on you. So out of the box, I would say that for your basic, more normie user, if you just want something that operates very similar to Windows, then Ubuntu is probably going to give you a little bit better of an option. If you want something that is definitely more private, not going out and doing a lot of things in the background that you do not know of, and if you don't really care about setting up the theming differently, if you don't need the Cupertino layouts or things like that, Linux Mint might be the better choice. Although for now, I will still say until 20.1 comes out, I'd probably stick on the 19.3 for now because it's completely mature, and hey, Chromium is still an option over there for now. And so those things will be fixed in the next release of it. But nevertheless, they're both excellent distributions. There's no specific reason to run or not to run any of these for the general purpose user. You just need to know yourself, what are your needs, what do you need, and make those decisions from there. Of course, we didn't mention snaps a lot. Ubuntu is going to, by default, use snaps and no Flatpaks. Linux Mint uses Flatpaks and no snaps by default. And so you need to decide for yourself which one of those routes you would like to go down. So there is our take and our look at Linux Mint Mate versus Ubuntu Mate. Let me know which one of these is your favorite and why in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.